Hey folks, this is Vint with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to quickly review Wildermyth. This is a game that you can find on Steam for roughly 25 bucks. There is a 20% off launch sale for the next 24 hours as of the date and time of this recording. So if you're fast and you watch my videos as soon as they're published, which you should, then you may want to pick this up because it's a fantastic game. So what is Wildermyth? Well, this is a RPG with a focus on storytelling and papercraft combat slash art. So how does this game work? Well, whenever you start a new game, you'll be able to choose your campaign. And each campaign is broken up over several chapters. There's two pre-existing campaigns in the beginning. There's a 3-chapter campaign and a 5-chapter campaign. Each chapter is like a quest that you have to do, and when you complete that quest, there's like an interim upgrade system, and then you move on to the next chapter. There's also procedurally generated campaigns as well. In the very beginning, you'll have to do the introductory one as the one that you start off with. It's like your tutorial of sorts. But once you complete that, or at least get through the first chapter of that first campaign, then you can create a new story and go on those procedural ones. There is also campaigns for legendary characters. Legendary characters are characters that have finished their story, so to speak, and you can choose them again. However, they'll start off as a young person again with some of the skills that they got when you first, when you finished with them. So, like, let's say that you finish a campaign or whatnot, and this character is older. Yeah, they age, and they gained all these cool skills. They've leveled up, and then you create a legacy character out of them. When you start a new campaign, these characters may show up in new playthroughs that you do, although they'll be younger versions of themselves with some of the skills that they had. So, I mean, there's ways to see the characters that you've already built in some variant form. Okay, so that's what legacy characters are all about, and it's a cool system. Reminds me of like a roguelike in that sense, where you're not completely going to see these characters exactly as how they looked, but at least you'll get to see them again in some way, shape, or form. So anyway, getting back to the whole way the game works, you've got these campaigns that you can choose, and then once you pick a campaign, you'll get 3 characters, and you can re-roll them, but typically there's a hunter class, or like a ranger slash bow and arrow class, and then there's a sorcerer slash wizard class, whatever. And by the way, the wizard isn't what I expected at all. I'm calling it a wizard or sorcerer or whatever, but instead of shooting things like fireballs and ice bolts or whatever, you've got this ability to, I'm going to just say enchant, for lack of a better term. There's an actual term that's used in game that is just escaping my brain right now. But you can enchant objects in the environment, and then based on the object that you've enchanted, you can attack with it. So for example, let's say you enchant this I don't know, this bench or this barrel, okay? And these objects are predefined in the environment. You can enchant it, and then using your action for that turn, you can activate that object's ability. It might be throw itself at, like throw a rock shard or something at a nearby opponent, or entangle this enemy or something like that. Again, each object has different abilities. So the wizard doesn't directly attack things. I mean, you can melee, but this wizard slash enchantress, whatever, just goes after objects in the environment instead, and then you use those objects to attack your opponent. It's weird. It really is. The ranger class is what you expect. Bow and arrow, very roguish. You can go stealth if you want to. But they do gain abilities as they level up, too, and you can choose them. So every time a character levels, you can choose like one of 3 or 4 abilities. You can spec this character into first aid, or if you're a warrior, for example, if you want this Overwatch ability, you can do that. It's really cool. So you've got these characters after you created them, and now you're at this campaign map, and you're in your first chapter, and now you're like, okay, so now I've got this overworld map. What am I doing here? Well, you've got this this overworld threat of evil. And this part reminds me of XCOM 2 a little bit, in the sense that the game plays out in real time, so as long as you're doing something, and the more time that passes, the stronger the enemy becomes. So let's say that enough time has passed, and the enemy's counter drops to 0, bad things happen. Enemy units that belong to the enemy team, the bad guys, will get stronger. And these, you can see these abilities via cards in a particular menu. Now, when this happens, you can spend something called legacy points to prevent that from happening. So you can go, okay, I want this one and this one and this one to not come into effect, but I'm not so worried about this bad effect because I don't see this enemy too much, or this effect isn't that bad. So you let that go through. Okay, so over time, enemies will become stronger. After every combat, like after every time you take over a territory that belongs to an enemy, there is a forced upgrade that you cannot use legacy points to get rid of. Legacy points, by the way, are very rare points that you earn to do different things with. Sometimes legacy points are used to upgrade a territory or to prevent those enemy abilities from kicking in from time to time. They can be used for various things, so you have to figure out how you want to spend these things. There's also a resource generation at play. As you capture territories, you can secure the territory, and each territory gives you resources. At the end of every chapter, you can use the resources that you've earned to get new equipment for your characters. So you can upgrade, say, a tier 0 bow into a tier 1 bow, or you can just give a different weapon to your warrior altogether. I started off with this very basic, like, pitchfork, and I used it for the entire first chapter, and then at the end of the first chapter, I went ahead and crafted a sword and shield to make my warrior a bit more tanky. So there's a resource generation element to this as well. The biggest draw, I think, is the character development in this game. It tells a story. Again, a lot of it is paper crafty, but and some of it is RNG, like 40% chance to do this, 20% chance to do this, if this happens, so on and so on. But your characters will gain traits and negative buffs and positive buffs as they play. They develop relationships with other characters, romance, all that good stuff. So you're going to really feel for these characters over time as you really come to know them. So there is some reading involved. That being said, you know, there are some randomly generated events that pop up from time to time that also have their own little mini story that you can complete. Like I don't want to spoil too much, but I had to divert some of my party to an area to bury my friend or something like that. But I don't want to spoil what happened there. But you start off with 3 characters, and I think you can recruit up to 5 characters. So you can recruit more people along the way as well. This game does support multiplayer. Again, you start off with 3 characters, and you and your friends, there's remote play, by the way. So one person would simply need to own the game, the others can tag along. So, you know, characters will control different people, and, you know, you can cooperatively try and complete these campaigns together, which is kind of cool. Combat is also fairly good. It's a little basic. Combat, it's like XCOM in the sense that it uses action points, where, you know, moving to this radius will consume 1 action point, and then if you go beyond that, it'll spend both your action points. Okay, so it very XCOM that way. And again, some actions are used for free actions, other ones take up your entire act, like attacking, end your turn, for example. So you have to sort of pick where you want to go before you do that. But combat is pretty it's not that in-depth. I will warn you, however, that even on the easier settings, it's easy to get one-shotted, especially on the normal and harder difficulty settings. So luckily, you can set like Iron Man mode to off and have the game save on a regular basis so you can reload encounters. That's good. But hey, if you like the whole idea of a permanent progression, Iron Man, you know, oh, my character got maimed. Do I want to? They're almost dead. Do I want to kill them off? I'm given a choice. Do I want to kill them off, or do I let this guy retreat, but they get a permanent debuff for the rest of their lives? You know, so you can you can decide their fate in that fashion. So there's a lot more to this game that I didn't touch on. And a lot of that I don't want to spoil for you because, again, a lot of this is narrative storytelling with an RPG paper crafty twist to it. And you've got this basic XCOM combat system going on. And again, a permanent progression on these enemies that you're going to be fighting. This is good. This is a good game, folks. Highly recommend it. There's a lot of replayability here. There's even the ability to customize characters. There's a character builder of sorts, but I have not delved too deeply into that. It seemed a bit overwhelming for me at first when I dived into it. And I may touch on it later, but to be honest with you, I'm too engrossed with the main game to really focus on that right now. Do I recommend this one? Absolutely, positively, yes. If you guys haven't already subscribed to me on Twitch and YouTube, that way you can stay up to date with any new content I'm going to publish. This is Vince, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.